A lot of viewers have asked me to put together a video about what I do outside of YouTube, which is what we're going to cover today. I'm still going to upload a video on Monday. Well, we got a lot of ground to cover, so let's just jump right into it. I purchased the 52-acre farm about 4 years ago. Fortunately, the previous owner had set up the property as a cattle operation, which was exactly what I wanted. It's laid out in 6 paddocks, which allows me to move the cattle around so they don't overgraze in one area and the grass has a chance to recover. When it's time to move them, as you can see, they get pretty excited. The goal of the farm is to raise and sell affordable grass-fed beef. It usually takes around 2 years from birth until a cattle is ready for market. I'm trying to gradually grow the size of the herd, and right now I only have 13 cattle. With a small herd of only 13 cattle, you have to be very resourceful or you can actually lose a lot of money raising cattle. For example, 2 years ago, due to a drought, round bales were selling for around $100 each. My cattle consume between 4 and 5 round bales during the winter. So if I bought $500 of hay for each animal to be fed throughout the winter, I'd have to sell the grass-fed beef for an incredibly high price or I'd lose money. My goal is to sell affordable grass-fed beef, so I've set up the business model accordingly. For example, making my own hay did require some upfront costs, but I'm not able to sell affordable grass-fed beef if I'm buying hay. There's nothing wrong with buying new equipment, but I just can't afford it, and it just doesn't make good financial sense to buy a $50,000 baler, at least in my case, with such a small herd of only 13 cattle. I bought the old John Deere baler for $2,500 and have spent around $500 in repairs that I've made to the baler. Right after buying the baler, I had to remove all the belts and replace the belt splices, and I also replaced the main drive chain. In case you're wondering, I did not grow up on a farm, and I've never operated a baler before. However, a hay baler is nothing more than a large steel box with chains, gears, and belts. They're really not all that complicated, and anyone can learn to repair and operate a baler. So this past winter, I put out between 3 and 4 bales to the cattle each week. I'm able to feed hay to the cattle using my Ford 5000, but since I don't have a loader on the Ford 5000, the Kubota makes things a lot easier. Even with the front wheel assist on the Kubota, we've had some pretty wet pastures, and I've just about gotten the Kubota stuck a few times. Fortunately, the Kubota has a hay grapple. The downside to using a hay grapple like I have on the Kubota is that the bucket and the grapple weigh about as much as the bale of hay, and I have to use a counterbalance on the tractor to keep the rear wheels on the ground. The hay spear is very nice, but I have a little bit more control over the bale, and removing the twine is a pretty quick and easy process as well. When I'm ready to place a hay bale in the hay ring for the cattle, I cut all the twine, leaving just enough length to tie the loose ends of the twine onto the hay grapple. Once I place the hay inside the hay ring, the grapple pulls the twine away from the hay bale as I back away from the hay ring. So the weather forecast is looking great with several days before the next rainfall, and the ground is just dry enough, so let's go ahead and make some hay. I have a New Holland 616 disc mower which makes nearly an 8-foot swath. The mower itself mounts to the 3-point attachment and it has to be set up properly to do a good job. The lower left and right side of the 3-point hitch has to be adjusted so that they are as level as possible. The lower 2 arms have to be 18 inches off the ground. The tension spring helps take weight off the end of the mower so it moves freely along the ground. To make sure the mower is set up properly, when the mower is in the down position, the tension spring needs to be right at 35.5 inches. The mowing height is adjusted by the top link on the mower. Shortening the top link causes the mower to pitch forward and the blades will cut closer to the ground. It has 1 hydraulic hose and hydraulic cylinder for lifting and lowering the mower. So what's the difference between a disc mower and, say, a brush hog or a shredder? So a brush hog or a shredder just mulches the grass. The hay mower also only cuts the grass once near the ground, so the grass can be picked up by the baler, and also cutting it just once helps it maintain its nutritional value. As I mow around corners, I lift the mower so it doesn't mow through the grass that's already been cut. The Ford 5000 has plenty of power to mow between 5 and 6 miles per hour. On really smooth ground with enough horsepower, some people mow at quite a bit higher speeds. Once the hay is mowed, depending on wind, ambient temperature, ground moisture, and humidity, I usually allow the hay to cure for around 48 hours before I rake it. The hay rake I use is an 8-wheel V-rake. The hay rake uses a single hydraulic hose to lift and lower the arms on the hay rake. Of the entire process of making hay, I enjoy raking hay the most. Compared to all the other equipment I use to make hay, the wheel rake is the least complex and works the fastest. I usually rake between 6 and 8 miles per hour. With a 20-foot swath, I can rake a field about 3 times faster than I can mow it under the right conditions. I've adjusted the hay rake to make fairly wide windrows. The wider windrows allow the hay to cure a little bit faster and allows me to drive the tractor in a little bit more of a straight line instead of having to weave left and right. Since we had a lot of rain and I also fertilized this past year, the hay is a lot thicker than usual. In order to gather as much hay as possible, I'm allowing quite a bit of overlap with each pass. This also allows for less dense windrows and the hay will cure a little bit faster. If weather conditions are right, I typically begin baling as soon as I'm finished raking. I use a Kubota M9540 for baling. It's a bit on the small side, it's a 95 horsepower tractor, but it has just enough power for the baler. Before we move on to baling, I'm going to go over some preventive maintenance I did a couple of weeks ago. Just about every piece of equipment that hooks up to the back of a tractor either has a shear pin or a slip clutch. The slip clutch has a huge role to play in preventing damage to the tractor or the baler. If something gets caught up in the baler, you want the belts to stop spinning as quickly as possible to avoid any damage. The slip clutch, if properly maintained and not rusted, will do just that. So I went ahead and removed all the nuts and springs and ordered 2 new slip clutch discs. According to the repair manual, one sets the slip clutch tension when the springs are compressed to 35 millimeters from end of coil to end of coil. Now that all the springs are adjusted, the final step is to install and tighten the lock nuts. Now that the baler is field ready, let's go ahead and make some hay. The baler that I'm using is a John Deere 535 and it has a monitor which provides the operator with some pretty basic information. In my opinion, the most important thing to get right with the old baler is to actually get the bale started. If I'm going too fast, I can actually plug up the pickup on the baler. If that happens, it can actually cause damage to the baler. It also usually means 10 to 15 minutes trying to unplug the baler, which is a huge hassle. If the hay is really dry, I typically lower the RPM on the tractor, which helps the baler start a bale in the bale chamber. Once the bale is started, I typically drive at about 4 to 4.5 miles per hour. The bale monitor has a bale shape indicator. I steer to the left or the right to feed hay into the hay baler based upon the information provided by these 2 gauges. The John Deere 535 can make a 5 by 6 foot bale. Since I've shortened the belts a little when I recently replaced the belt splices and to reduce wear and tear, mine is adjusted to make a 5 by 5.5 foot bale. Once the bale has reached about 5 feet, the bale monitor indicates that the bale is nearly finished. Once the bale has reached 5.5 feet in diameter, the monitor indicates that the bale has started wrapping the bale. I drive the baler until I see the twine wheels begin spinning. It takes a minute for the baler to wrap twine around the bale from one side all the way to the other. While the bale is getting wrapped, I back up the baler a few feet, and once the baler has finished wrapping the bale, I activate the hydraulics on the tractor to eject the bale. I much prefer using my Ford 5000 for moving hay bales since it's a lot smoother to drive than the Kubota is, but I still have the hay mower hooked up since I still have a couple of more hay fields that I need to mow within the next few days. The Kubota does have the advantage of being able to move 2 bales at once instead of just 1. I usually try to move all the hay bales off the hay fields before the next rainfall. There's never a dull day with the chickens, ducks, and geese. They are pretty crazy at times, especially when it comes time to feed on some kale. The video was definitely more of a broad overview of the farm and what I do outside of YouTube. If you'd like more videos getting more specific, please let me know in the comments section. As you know, all my video ideas are viewer suggested, including this one. I'm definitely going to continue product testing, so if I do a video about the farm, it's just going to be sort of an extra video for the week. Thanks so much for watching. Please take care, and I look forward to next time.